Good afternoon, guys. Today I make this video with a very heavy heart. Just recently, the finance minister of Zimbabwe pronounced that they have set aside $57 million to compensate white farmers for the return of land that they had stolen back to the Zimbabweans that it belonged to. Basically, the Revolutionary Party of ZANU-PF has decided to compensate white farmers for stealing Zimbabwean land. What is actually much more problematic is the fact that we understand that the government is lying to us by saying that it is going to pay 56 or $57 million to white farmers, because the government of Zimbabwe has already been paying white farmers and is going to pay to the tune of $9 billion. This is $9 billion that the government created by giving us a bond note. After giving us that bond note, they created treasury bills and took debt from banks in Zimbabwe. And after taking that debt, they took the money and they spun it on the black market. In contravention of the foreign exchange regulations of Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwean government went and bought US dollars from the black market and then brought that US dollars back, only to spin them again and again with debt until they created $9 billion of debt in Zimbabwe. This is debt that we did not see going into infrastructure development, debt that did not see paying off some of our debts that we have with the multilateral institutions, but it is debt that was used to pay white farmers for stealing our land. We have paid these white farmers by merely transferring wealth from common Zimbabweans, our pension funds, making sure that those pension funds reduce in value by trading this bond note and devaluing it on the black market so that our government could make these US dollars to pay white farmers. I've seen white farmers here in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, that are talking about being paid $3 million to $10 million. And the government is lying to us that it is going to pay $57 million. There are 4,000 white farmers that could claim against government. And if some of them have been paid 10 million and some of them have been paid 3 million, it means that the money is in the billions. Now, you have to understand that Zimbabwe is paying compensation to white farmers that colonized Zimbabwe. And after colonizing Zimbabwe, these same white farmers who colonized Zimbabwe for 90 years, these Rhodesians that colonized Zimbabwe for 90 years, never paid reparations for Zimbabwe. And because they never paid reparations for Zimbabwe, when we took over Zimbabwe from Rhodesia, we had a debt of $3 billion in today's money. And we have still not been able to clear the $3 billion in the 37 years of our independence. And not only that, because we took over a nation that did not have facilities for black Zimbabweans, a nation that was built just to benefit 4% of the people, we found ourselves in a situation where the government of Zimbabwe had to build schools for 96% of the population. They had to build schools, sanitation, training centers, hospitals, so that they could give 96% of the people that had been excluded from Rhodesia facilities that the Rhodesians did not give them. And the Rhodesians and the British government did not give Zimbabweans these facilities, yet the UN Charter, and before that the League of Nations Chapter 12, and then the ICESPRO Treaty that was signed in 1969 had mandated those colonial powers to give services to their previously non-self-administering people. There were obligations in the UN Charter, obligations in the ICESPRO Treaty that said that colonial powers must give facilities, must give services to those people that they colonize, so that those people could have human rights and dignity in their lives. The British government did not do it, Rhodesia did not do it, and after not doing that, they still didn't pay reparations when we got independence. Our government had to go and get loans from the IMF, from our multilateral lending institutions, in order to build schools for black Zimbabweans, hospitals, training centers. They had to be able to train their nurses, doctors, and all those skills that we needed to build Zimbabwe. And we had to take loans to do that. And these loans were taken because the revenue that was being generated by the government of Zimbabwe was being used to buy farmland, our own land, back from the thieves that had stolen that land. This is absolutely absurd. But what makes it even more absurd is the fact that we are told that this money is being paid for improvements that were done on this land. Improvements that were done on this land without consultation of black Zimbabweans. Improvements that included the cutting down of our trees, the putting of chemicals into our soils, the putting of pipes and tunnels underneath the soils without our consultation, buildings, and all these things that were done by white farmers without consulting our people. A lot of times when you take somebody's property and you utilize that property in a way that is not approved by the owner, it's called vandalism. But we are paying for vandalism as improvements. But the people that made the improvements, the people that destroyed our soils, the ones that poisoned our soils, the ones that killed our bees, the ones that took down our trees, all of which is causing the climate change that we're seeing today because the evapotranspiration has reduced, do not pay us any compensation, but we have got a president that decides to pay them compensation for destroying our land and also being unjustly enriched by our slave labor, our resources, and this land that they never bought. There is something wrong with that picture. But what annoys me more is the fact that Emmerson Mnangagwa is undertaking this land reform program at a time when South Africa and Namibia want to undertake land expropriation without compensation. Mnangagwa is deliberately paying these white farmers at a time when we are going to compromise the South African and Namibian land reform, which is supposed to happen without compensation. At a time where Africa, SADC, and all African regions are supposed to come together in unity to have uniform policies so that we have decolonization and compensation of Africans for previous crimes against humanity, our president has decided to stand alone and compensate farmers. It is said that a month before the coup, Emmerson Mnangagwa came to South Africa, he went to Midrand, and he met 30 Rhodesians, very powerful Rhodesian business people and farmers that are living in South Africa. Among them were also South African Boers and farmers who asked Emmerson Mnangagwa to undertake a coup to remove Robert Mugabe. They asked him to remove Robert Mugabe, and they would give him money to remove Robert Mugabe. They would give him money to pay our military so that our military could be mercenaries for them. They removed Robert Mugabe, and they would give him money to campaign and to ensure that he would become president to retain his power. In return, Emmerson Mnangagwa would then have to compensate white farmers. And the purpose he would have to compensate white farmers is so that when South Africa tries to do its land reform without compensation, Zimbabwe will have set a precedent that criminalizes South Africa's land reform program without compensation. They also said in this meeting that they would finance Mnangagwa to remove Mugabe, but they would also be willing to make such finances available if Cyril Ramaphosa decided to take land without compensation. They would also remove him in the same way. They would institute sanctions on South Africa, and all the investment would go to Zimbabwe if Mnangagwa was able to pay compensation to white farmers. So my president, my imposter president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, is choosing to take sides with Afrikaners and Boers, our colonizers, to sabotage the land reform in South Africa, to sabotage land reform in Namibia. He is partnering with the very same white people that have been colonizing and impoverishing the people of this region. That doesn't make sense. It makes him a coward, an Uncle Tom. It makes him a colonial administrator who is destroying the Pan-Africanist dream. And it does not make sense how it is that we as Zimbabweans can support a man who is doing exactly what Nelson Mandela did. Nelson Mandela sabotaged the Zimbabwe land reform program by accepting capital that ran from Zimbabwe, capital that was brought here by our colonizers and those that exploited our ancestors, that was invested in South Africa. They also sabotaged our land reform by isolating us together with the Western countries in our trade, that resulted in the sanctions that were put by the United States to stop this land reform biting Zimbabweans. But as Zimbabweans, we are saying we know better. Africa must stand together if these land reform programs are going to be effective. Africa must stand together if our people are going to be emancipated for their resources. And what annoys me is that ZANU-PF is compensating these white farmers also because they want the sanctions to be removed by the United States and Europeans. But what ZANU-PF do not understand is that Haiti, 200 years ago, got independence from France after fighting an 11-year-old war. They defeated France, and in 1804, they got independence. Haiti ended slavery in Haiti, they got independence, they ended colonialism, and they created a constitution in which they said no white man shall ever be master on Haitian land. They also said in their constitution no white man shall ever own land in Haiti again. But they went further to say any black person that became independent or ran away from a slave colony and got onto Haitian land, immediately that black person was free. This is what Haiti said. And because of what Haiti said, European powers that were fighting each other in the Napoleonic Wars, after the defeat of France, they decided that they will never allow a black nation to defeat a European nation again and free itself from slavery or colonialism. So they came together, even though they were at war, these Europeans, they decided to unite on the issue of Haiti, and they put sanctions on Haiti. They put sanctions on Haiti, embargoes on Haiti. They blockaded Haitian ships so that Haiti could not trade with the rest of the world. The United States, England, Spain, Portugal, and all those European nations came together to isolate Haiti in the same way that Zimbabwe has been isolated for the past 18 years. And to remove those sanctions, they say to Haiti, you must pay compensation to France and France's slave owners for the loss of income that they have suffered for your ending of slavery. Haiti had to pay reparations, damages, for freeing itself from slavery. And eventually, because of the blockades, because of the sanctions and isolation, because Haiti could only trade with European countries because there were no independent black countries, Haiti eventually gave in. And in 1825, they decided to pay these reparations. It was supposed to be reparations that were going to be paid in gold, $50,000 of gold francs in that time. And that's when they accepted the terms. That is $25 billion in today's money, not including the interest that Haiti had to pay. Haiti began to pay from 1825 all the way to 1955. They paid France. But that did not make the sanctions go away. In fact, Haiti was then invaded by the United States in 1915. After being invaded by the United States took their gold. They took $35 billion of gold that was put into Goldman Sachs. That the question that I'm asking is, how is that possible? How is it that our leaders still think that by paying and compensating for colonialism or slavery, we're going to progress when Haiti has not progressed? After being attacked by the United States, there have been many coups in Haiti, and Haiti continues to be a poverty-stricken country because the debt that they paid France has stopped them from creating an education system, a medical system, and any form of an institutional system in Haiti because they have remained in poverty for paying a debt that they should never have paid. Most of the time when a nation has been illegally occupied, when a nation has been pillaged by other nations, it gets given reparations like the Jews were given reparations. But in Africa, we don't get reparations. We pay tax. We are taxed for liberating ourselves. And what is happening in Zimbabwe is exactly what happened in Haiti. We are being penalized and taxed for freeing ourselves. We are being penalized and taxed for controlling our land and resources, and the sanctions are to ensure that we are unable to use those resources. We are unable to benefit ourselves with these resources so that we call white men again to take over those resources. And now South Africans have always thought that the sanctions in Zimbabwe were because of human rights abuses. But right now, if South Africa decides to have land reform without compensation, they are also going to be punished with sanctions, and an excuse will be given like human rights abuses or some sort of other European, Eurocentric concept that tries to justify their criminal activities and to criminalize our need for restoration and emancipation. My annoyance with my president is he has become an economic askari. He has become a colonial administrator on behalf of colonialists. This is a leader that we can no longer look at as a leader if he's sabotaging Pan-Africanism, if he's sabotaging the interest of his own citizens, reducing their own wealth, taking away their pension funds, taking away their Nostro accounts in order to pay the debts of a criminal that wants to be compensated for their criminality. It is very important that we understand what has just happened in Zimbabwe. It's very important to understand as Zimbabweans that if we have struggled to pay $3 billion of debt that we found when we got independence, how are we going to be able to pay the $9 billion that was created just now to compensate white farmers, plus another $7 billion that was already existing before? It's time that we look at this. And it's time that as Africans we begin to question these elderly leaders that we have, if they've got our interests at heart.